Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you all so much for joining. This is a special program with Candace Craw Goldman, who will be interviewing me today. How are you doing today, Candace?
I'm doing great, Shane. It's so wonderful to be with you here in this wonderful new year of 2019. Thank you so much for setting this up and running the show.
Well, Happy New Year to you. I think it's going to be the best year yet.
I think so, too.
That's awesome. So, okay, I'm going to let you ask the questions. This is kind of I'm in the hot seat this time. Yeah.
Right. So why don't we go ahead and tell your listeners, Shane was gracious enough to accept to be on my show, the Quantum Healing with Candace show. And I waited till the last minute to set it all up. And then Shane said something about mentioning it, I guess, on one of your other shows, Shane. And this morning I woke up to about 3 emails of people saying, wow, you're going to be on Shane's show. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I am. maybe that's the way we should do this. And you have such a great setup, professional intro and beautifully orchestrated. So thank you so much for running this show. But this is a show about Shane today. And I want to thank you for that, because Shane, and you probably know this because you have this community and you have your show and the things that you do, and you get very busy taking care of your own community. And it's very hard to be a regular standard follower of people who run other communities. And they're, with all of the things that I'm involved with, the quantumhealers.com directory, the support forum, the BQH class, my show, all of that stuff. I catch shows of yours and others time and again, but not enough to where I really feel like I know you. And so this is almost a selfish thing for me. I want to know more about Shane. And so today, for those of you out there who may be a little bit like me and know a little bit about Shane here and there and not all the way, we're going to find out about Shane. So tell us about you from the beginning. I know you live in Oklahoma, but I wondered, have you always lived there? What about your family? Who were you and how did you even get to be the Shane that you are now? Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I was actually born in St. Louis, Missouri, at Missouri Baptist Hospital, actually. And I lived there most of my life. And I was the youngest of a total of, there was actually 2 siblings in the house with me, but I had 2 sisters that didn't live with us. They're half sisters or whatever, that would come around for holidays or whatever. So it was just basically the 3 of us in the house growing up. I was the youngest. I got away with so much, and my older siblings hated the fact that I didn't have all the chores that they had, and that my parents mellowed out by the time they got to me and all that stuff. So, and I think that's pretty much the same for everybody in their house or whatever. But so yeah, everything was great. And then my parents split up when I was 13, and for a while, for about, I don't know, I guess a summer or something, I went with my mom and my sister to Colorado, and I lived between Estes Park, Colorado, and Loveland, Colorado, in a little bitty town called Drake, Colorado, and we lived in a cabin. And so I spent the summer there. That was really cool. Then they got back together for a few more years, and then I moved here to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and this is where I met my wife. And we lived here. My mom and dad split up again, but it was mainly because my dad had a job where he had 30-year and out type of retirement plan. He didn't want to quit his job. And my mom had been diagnosed with cancer, and she really wanted like a faith healing. So she wanted to move to this area. They have the Cancer Research Center here, like right by Oral Roberts University. So she was really religious. And then my sister went to Oral Roberts University. So we mainly moved here because of my mom's diagnosis and to be closer to more, it's the Bible Belt, you know what I mean? So then I moved back with my dad for a while, and it was just me and him, and I got my car and started driving and working. And then I moved back here, and that's actually when I met my wife when I came back again. Then we got married and moved back to St. Louis again for a while. And then we moved right outside Atlanta, Georgia in Gwinnett County because my sister had lived there. She had moved there in the meantime. And so that's pretty much all the places I've lived. And we moved back here in '09. So that's like all of the places I've lived so far. But and you know, kind of how I got to where I am now. I've been married 25 years as of November the 12th of that just passed. So.
Well, congratulations. I'm myself married 35 years in December, so a little bit older than you, but a nice long togetherness thing. So you're the baby. You know, that tells me a little something too. You have this kind of chill attitude, and that comes from often being the youngest in the family. That's interesting. And to learn all the different places that you've lived also tells me a little bit about some things. May I ask how your mother is doing?
Actually, she passed away when I was 19. So it was actually my wife and I got married in '93 on November the 12th, and then she passed away that December 3rd. So and then my dad ended up passing away 10 years later of cancer too. So we've been through the whole hospice thing with both my parents, and that's why we moved back here, so she can be with her parents. And then her father ended up going through the whole hospice thing. So we actually have helped all three of our parents, you know, through that. Her mom is still alive, and she's doing good right now. So that's really what's holding us here in Tulsa, is that she, you know, I don't really have family to be around, so just to let her live by her mom.
That's one of the main reasons I'm here in Kansas as well. My mom passed in 2016, but Dad's still going. But boy, howdy, it's just him. So now it's me taking care of him, plus all these other things. Mm-hmm. Shane, is it too personal to ask you a little bit about your mom and dad's cancer?
No, no, fine. You can ask anything. Nothing's off the table here.
You know, when you said that to me, and you said it to me more than once, but you know, these are real personal things, and I'm happy if you just go, hey, that's a little too personal. I'm wondering, after going through your parents' illnesses, understanding about cancer, and then doing what you do now, and even going through the BQH course, I wonder if, looking back on your parents' illnesses and the types of cancer that they had, do you have a better understanding of maybe why their illnesses have manifested? You know, what kind of set them up for that?
That's a good question, because, you know, a lot of times they say that, you know, holding a lot of unforgiveness and things like that, but can, like, you know, eat away at you or cause cancer. And neither one of them were really like worrywarts or unforgiving people or anything. So I think my mom kind of felt like her cancer was caused because she had cervical cancer and then ended up getting a tumor towards the end in her brain. So she felt like it was because she lived in a place called Times Beach, Missouri. And I think they had gotten in trouble for, like, you know, burying some stuff. There was some kind of spill there, chemical spill. And she always felt like it was from living there around that chemical stuff. With my dad, he also had it in his stomach. I think it was pancreatic cancer for him. So they both got it in their stomach region. And but with him, I'm not really sure, you know, what he felt like the thing was that caused it. He lived to be 60. He was in his 60s. My mom died at 47. She had just turned 47, so she was pretty young, you know. I mean, I'm almost her age now. It's hard to believe how young she was. But my dad lived a lot longer. He was like around 60, which is still pretty young for, you know, dying, but a lot longer than my mom, you know. Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to thank you for telling us these stories. It sure helps me get to know you a little better, and I'm sure our listeners as well. So, you know, one of the things we learn doing the work that we do, you know, some of these cancers, yes, they can have material causes like that, but they can also have ancestral issues. You know, I know a lot of ancestral stuff is coming up to be cleared right now with these crazy energies. But I know the more that you do, you know, the BQH sessions, and the more you kind of have your hand in this, the more these things kind of come together and some of the dots get connected. So I know you've talked a lot about, you know, the Mandela effect and how that kind of brought you into the work that you did. And I know you've talked a lot about religion, and that's interesting. You were born at a Baptist hospital. It's the Baptists who have been the most contentious communicators with me. Yeah, I think I even got an email yesterday on our directory from some Baptist who just had to tell me that everybody on our directory was going to go to hell because we meditate, you know, stuff like that. Sort of like, oh, wow, okay. But how did the faith healing that your mother sought during her illness, how did that play out for her? How did that affect you?
Well, she was diagnosed when I was 8, so she actually lived quite more after the diagnosis of my life than before. So she was diagnosed when I was 8. She passed away when I was 19. She really, I didn't even recognize her as being sick until I was 16 when she ended up having a stroke and went to, the ICU. And she had already told me that she had cancer. Before that, I guess I was around, she didn't tell me until I was like 11 or 12. She just didn't want to burden me with that or whatever. But she, in fact, on her gravestone, we put one of her sayings, which was, "I would rather die with my faith than to live without it." So she was ultra religious, and she ultimately trusted God would either heal her or it wasn't meant to be if she didn't get a healing. So that's why we put that on her gravestone, because it really kind of summed up how she felt or whatever. But she went through a lot. And you know what? I think I view cancer now, it sounds kind of weird, but I see it as a blessing because, well, as a parent now, I understand that I wouldn't mind going through, months and months of suffering and hospice and all that. I wouldn't go through the chemo and the radiation. I think I would just go a little quicker and just enjoy what I have left and just let it play out, because I don't know, it just seemed like it just made their life horrible going through all of that and then still dying. It just extended their life, but it wasn't great quality living. But I saw it as being a blessing because it gave us opportunities to say goodbye and to spend time and realize they're going to be leaving. I just think of, if it had been a car accident or something that was sort of caught you off guard, that would have been so much more horrible. I can't even imagine what that would be like to just lose someone in an instant. So as a parent, I would suffer a little bit for my kids just to, let them know, hey, I'm leaving this planet or whatever. And so I see it as a blessing because it, with my mom, there were so many things I wanted to ask her that, because she was so into the faith healing thing, it would be like doubting for me to start asking her things like, hey, you're not going to be around forever. I'd like to know, how did you make that one dish, or something simple, you know what I mean? And but with my dad, it was a lot different. He was like, I'm ready to go, son. I'm tired of all this. And I was like, I understand. And I got to ask him all of the things that like I was kind of nervous to ask my mom about because it would have been considered doubting with her. But, I see it as a blessing, and because everyone has to die, so to have that warning, I feel like was a good thing.
Wow. Well, I've had it both ways. My brother, when I was 28, he died instantly on the road at age 26. But, looking back on it, at the time, of course, it was horrific. And I thought my dad might go to jail because I thought he might kill the guy who killed my brother. I really did. I mean, I spent long time trying to talk him out of that idea. When he had one too many to drink, he thought that was just a great idea, and it was horrible. But looking back on it, I also know it was this huge event that propelled me to where I am right now, and eventually propelled my mother to die in peace. And even my father now, who's living a pretty decent life right now, is a different person because of all of this, plus my path of healing. So I think you have it right. The shock of somebody leaving that quickly, especially if nothing's wrong with them, is tough. But losing both your parents that way, but being able to hold them and be with them at the end, it is a gift. It really, really is a gift. Even right now, I'm putting together this self-healing class, and in it, I'm trying into a very gentle way of saying, whatever it is that you're struggling with, whatever challenge you're struggling with, it didn't happen to you. It really happened for you. And the conscious mind is not wanting that. The part of the brain that wants the pain or the issue or the misery or the challenge to go away does not want to hear that. And I have some of my own challenges ongoing. I don't want to hear that either. But the higher part of me completely understands it, because every time something like that happens, there is a gift at the end. Your soul knows something that your conscious mind and your temporal, limited, linear self just doesn't see. And I think that's, your mom's faith. Oh gosh, that gives me goosebumps. Your mom's faith helped her through that. And our discussing these kinds of spiritual, metaphysical concepts with each other, I think helps us when we're in these situations. What do you think? How has that affected your life, being in these communities, since you got into all of this, thinking of these big issues?
It's really been wonderful because, I was in religion so long, and then I would question things, and you talk to your peers, your family, which are also Christian, and you're trying to share things that come up, and no one's really ever open to discuss things because, a lot of them think, you'll burn in hell if you question this or that or whatever. It's like fear keeps them from looking outside the box. But I can definitely see how, with both of my parents, how the sicknesses. Well, I told you my mom said she would rather live with her faith or die with her faith than to live without it. And my dad's saying that we put on his headstone was that there is no testimony without a test. So you can really see how with both of them, it was really instrumental in creating the people that they were and that they died as being. And so, yeah, I think it's everything works together for good. And you can take things, I think of them as catalyst, as the law of one talks about. You can take it and either become more negative or more positive. Like when I look at my brother, he'll take things and it'll just push him into more negativity instead of kind of learning from a lesson. It'll make him more bitter. You know what I mean? And it's like you see this over and over again. It's like, dude, just see, use this to move this direction, not that way. And it's sort of, to kind of take the whole off the fence thing, it sort of gets you off the fence of being neutral or lukewarm, and it pushes you either more negative or more positive,
Mm-hmm. So you said it in passing really quickly, but I didn't miss this. You're a parent now. See, I didn't know that. I mean, and you don't have to talk too much about your kid or your kids, but that's cool. I guess I wonder how you treat your child or children any maybe different as far as religion and metaphysical and spiritual things than the way you were brought up.
That's a great question because, my kids span so many years that I've got 5 kids.
No way. 5?
5 kids, 4 girls and a boy. So my wife got pregnant right after we got married. So the oldest is 24. And then the next one is actually she'll be 22 the day after tomorrow. And then we kind of took a break for a few years. So the next one is she will be 16 in April 1st. And then the next one just turned 14 in December. And then those are the 4 girls. And then my son is 11. He's about to turn 12. So, yeah, quite a range, a huge gap. But now with the first 2, I was really ultra religious while they were growing up. So I tried to raise them like I was raised. We went to church all the time and really strict. And, I would check Dr. James Dobson's Focus on the Family before I'd let them watch anything. And, you know what I mean? I was just really uptight. I know it sounds funny, but now it's like, I kind of let my kids do their own thing. I guide them however I can see fit. But I'm not really strict at all. I'll let them know about consequences to their actions, and but I'm not strict at all with them. I'll just say, well, garbage in, garbage out. I'll let them know things like that, but for the most part, I let them do what they want, and be respectful and be courteous and things like that. You know, I try to teach them the things anyone should teach their child or whatever. But, you know, I don't really try to say, you know, why don't you get into sports or why don't you get into music, or I just let them go wherever their desires lead them. You know what I mean?
Well, you're a good dad. So, you know, that 14-year-old is right at that age where if she could be really psychic, you know, that's the real psychic kind of, I know for me, you know, 12, 13, 14, woo, I didn't have anyone to talk to about any of this stuff. But I know that you did a session on one of your daughters. Which age?
Oh, it was the second daughter. It was the 21-year-old. She's going to be 22 on the 9th.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we talk to BQH. But I still want to talk to you about your family a little bit. So, sure. And about you. So there you are in Oklahoma, and you're in Tulsa. And so when you're not doing this, do you do other kinds of work, and what are your hobbies? You know, I'm wondering who you are outside of this show. Whatever you want to share about that.
Yeah, actually, no, this is pretty much all I do. I do the shows, I do researching, and, you know, it takes quite a bit of time to respond to comments and emails and to look into things people send you. But, you know, so yeah, this is like a full-time job for me. Before this, I worked at a flea market cutting decals for people. They would come in and, you know, want a decal on the back of their car, and I could make custom stuff. So actually, I'm a graphic designer. I worked in websites for a while, but like you can see how all of that has played into this whole channel thing. I'm able to make all of my own art and logo, and I did video production for a while. I've done commercials and voiceovers and all of this stuff, and it's all like, you know, I can see how it was all training for this time in my life. So it's all coming together, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. I was in TV. I learned graphic design and photography myself, all of that. Yeah, it's like, oh, thank you that I don't have to do, well, I'm still working on the video stuff, but the design, etc. Very good. Well, that's wonderful to know. So when you're not doing any of this stuff, what do you like? You like to go fish? You know,
No.
what are your hobbies? Got any of those?
Yeah, I like to play the guitar. I like to play video games with my son. That's sort of how we spend time together. Really, other than that, maybe watch a movie every now and then, or a show or something like that. But typically, yeah, I really don't have much I do besides art and music. You know, that's always been sort of my thing and I haven't even been doing art like I should, you know. It's like, I'll usually do something that's work related or, you know, channel related. And then, so I don't have just a lot of just making a piece of art. And I enjoy doing that. It just takes a lot of time, you know.
Sure. All right. So, are you a city dude or a country dude?
It's funny you ask that, because I've been trying to get out in nature more, because I've always been sort of a city, you know, electronics kind of person, you know, like I don't really like to go camping and stuff like that, but that's all like been changing over the last year. I've been taking trips and just getting away from the electronics and just getting out in nature and enjoying the time away, and just, you know, I don't know, I'm just getting more connected with the trees and you know, just out in nature. And I think that's sort of part of this whole growth process I've been going through, you know.
How crazy warm is it that we have this January here happening on the prairie, right? I spent a part of Saturday in a hammock by my creek with a sweatshirt on. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's 62 here today. The last I looked, sunny, 62. It's so crazy. It's beautiful here.
Ooh. Yeah, it is great. We'll probably get hammered in February. We'll put some sort of giant ice storm or blizzard that hasn't been seen in 100 years. I know, because you're just right down the road from me.
Yeah, I'm not far at all.
Oh, super. Well, thank you so much. Now I feel I've always been so fond of you, so fond of your energy. And if she's watching, or if she ever listens to it, a shout out to Lauren Hansen for introducing me to you and connecting me to, you know, not only your show, but your energy as a being. I'm just quite fond of you. I know we don't speak a lot or do a lot together, but well,
thanks.
But
I feel the same way about you. I think that's so great, because it's like we're all coming together. And, you know, I didn't even get to mention that earlier. I kind of got sidetracked, but I was talking about, you know, you're in religion and you sort of kind of branch off by yourself, and you feel like you're in the wilderness by yourself for so long, and that you're just on this lonely journey that nobody wants to listen to anything you have to say. But it's like in the last year or two, it feels like I've come into this clearing in the wilderness, and hey, all these other people are here. You know what I mean? And it's been so awesome, because for so long I felt alone, like I went out on this limb and no one else was willing to go with me. But then I get out on the end, and then all these other people are out on the limb too, So
Yeah.
it's great.
And more people are waking up and understanding some stuff going on. Boy, it's been really crazy. All right. So now I want to talk a little bit about BQH, because you've done at least a couple of sessions and you've told us about them, or about one of them a little bit. But for those of you who hadn't heard Shane talk about the one session at all anywhere, I would love to hear what that was like for both you and your daughter.
Yep. So the first one I did was with my 21-year-old daughter, and it was really cool because I went through the material, and I don't know, I guess I knew it was going to work, but when it actually started working and she started telling me what she was seeing, I was kind of shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's really working. And it's like, and I love the BQH program because it's got all of these extra things in there in case you run into problems and stuff like that, to help with like imagination exercises and all this other stuff that if you need it, you've got it right there. And I went and printed everything out at Kinko's or whatever, and I've got it there in case the power goes off. I don't want to get stuck or something, So I've got everything ready in this like binder that I created, but to hear her start telling me what she was seeing and experiencing, and it was just so cool. And I don't know, I was kind of shocked. I guess I expected it to work, but at the same time, I was like shocked that it was working so well. And it was just an exciting experience. So I recently, since then, I did my wife, right? And with that, she was a little more difficult to get in there. But like I said, there was things I could rely on. So I went through the material, and she finally started giving me good feedback, and she got to meet with her grandma who passed away last year, and actually, was giving her tips and all of this stuff. So I was kind of expecting her to like show up in a past life or something like that, but it was like almost like current time. She got to, go to this park and sit with her grandma and have her grandma give her all these tips and stuff for life and how she sees it from the other side. And, it's giving me chills just to think about it now, because she just passed away and she's like got all this extra insight. She was the person that my wife was probably most connected to in that sort of way, so it was beautiful that she showed up, and I was like, oh my God, her grandma showed up. It was so cool. It was so cool, and it's like such a tool. I think it's a tool everyone should have, even if it's not going to be your main thing. Like I don't plan on quitting this and going and doing that, but being able to do that, especially having these get-togethers where I can provide a session for somebody at one of the get-togethers or do something like that. Just having it as sort of like a tool in your toolbox of things that you can offer is such a great thing to be able to help people with if the opportunity arises. So I'm so glad I did it, and I recommend anyone to do it that just whatever you're doing, it's a great thing to add to whatever you're doing,
Yeah, that's kind of the whole idea of BQH is its inclusiveness and openness to really, it plugs into just about everything. So thank you for saying that. How wonderful that your wife was even open to this, because, I've done something north of 1,100 sessions myself in a decade. And many of my clients, even happily married ones, there will be them that will say, unfortunately, my husband or my wife, they want nothing to do with this, or they're afraid of it, or they think I'm crazy. So how cool is it that your wife and you are, so similarly focused to be able to do such kind of exploration, and that she trusted you to do that really says something too about the quality of your relationship. It's beautiful.
Well,
congratulations. tell her hello for me.
Okay.
How about your other kids? I know, so you've done the session with the one and your wife. Are they all that open? Because sometimes it's all that's the same out there with other people. Some children are the new ones, and some are like, I want nothing to do with what you're doing, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, that's funny you said that, because it's like, I think some of them feel like, I don't want to go under and spill the beans about stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like, they might be better with another person. They might be open to it, but they, you know, I'm dad, so maybe they're not as open to it because they feel like maybe they'll say something that they don't want me to know or something. You know, who knows what it is. But I understand, because I would probably have, I had a lot of secrets growing up, you know.
Sure.
So I'm like an open book now, but like when I was growing up, I don't think I would have wanted my mom to do it. I'm like, I might say the wrong thing or something, and you can't really take it back. So I get it. But at the same time, I think, you know, if my sister and brother lived close by, I think they would be open to it. That's why I think it's you know, just cost-wise, if someone were to like learn to do it and then they're able to provide it for all the people around them, even if they don't want to do it with strangers or whatever, they can at least do it for their family members and stuff, you know, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes family members, you know, we teach that. Sometimes family members are the toughest because, yeah, you really have to feel like that you can open up. But here's the thing. I've been through enough of these sessions, and I've counseled and taught enough of them that you're not going to spill any beans. It's just really not going to happen. You don't lose yourself in that way. Your higher self would never take you in a position where it would be awful like that. I've never heard of it ever happening.
Right.
Everybody has secrets, some secrets that they would rather not broadcast, either like this to the world and maybe especially to the family, which is why sometimes, yeah, having a session with someone you don't know, especially if you're holding something in that's really, you know, bothering you or causing you distress in your life, it's easier to go to a stranger. But for those of you out there who are wondering, well, maybe I shouldn't because of that one thing,
right.
Know that you're probably not going to focus on that unless you really were poised to focus on it anyway. And then your higher self, you know, is just going to see it in you as an opportunity to come clean or whatever. But it really doesn't happen willy-nilly, and it's not ugly like that ever. And you don't completely lose control. You know, that's a big thing to say to people out there, that it's really not the way movies and cartoons and popular culture makes hypnosis out to be. It's something a little different than that.
Yeah, I think people expect that they're gonna like, it's gonna be like, I fell asleep for 2 hours and I woke up, what the heck did I say? And it's not like that at all. I mean, some of the stuff might be hazy for you, or you might, you know, remember things afterwards if you're listening to the recording. You're like, oh yeah, or whatever. But it's not like you got lost and you have no idea where you've been for the last 2 hours. But I think a lot of people think it's like that, so they're like kind of nervous. They're like, I don't want to wake up to some disaster I've created or said something, but it's not like that at all. But I understand why they might think that way because of pop culture, like you're saying, you know.
But, you know, even people like my beloved Dolores Cannon, she perpetuated that myth. She perpetuated it by saying, in my sessions, I take my clients to the somnambulistic level. She used to say that over and over again. There's videos out there where she is saying those words ad nauseum every year, and people are drinking that in. And, you know, I pushed her. I pushed her for a long time until she finally admitted, and she flat said, well, my definition of somnambulism is not the same definition as the clinical definition. The clinical definition is sleepwalking. The clinical definition is you probably aren't going to remember anything. Dolores says, well, that's not my definition. My definition is, and then she would say, it's the person really feeling like whatever. They're flying like an eagle, or heavy like a rock, or, you know, fighting a war like a Roman soldier, whatever it is, that they really feel like they're there. That was her definition of somnambulism, which is not the clinical definition. So this is one of the reasons some of this has been perpetuated. And I think, there's a very small percentage of people who do kind of not remember anything, but it's so small, and it's getting smaller.
Yeah. I think one of the things is it can kind of set people up for disappointment too, if they're imagining conking out and coming back with all of this information and then having to listen to it. It's like, it's sort of like if you can pump a movie up so much, you're like, you've got to see this movie. It's the most awesome movie in the world. And you pump it up so much that when the first person sees it, they're like, well, I thought this was going to be, it sets you up for unrealistic expectations. So I think it kind of hurts in that respect if people are, imagining that it's going to be that way and it really isn't that way, because a lot of times people will have little tidbits that let them know that, I wasn't just making that up, because why, where did that information come from? But then other parts you're like, was I just imagining that? Was I just thinking that? And it's more like that because you're there the whole time and you're saying what you're saying, but you're really seeing it. It's just sort of wondering if it's, was it my imagination that was creating those sites, or was I really somewhere else or whatever? So I think there's always little things in there to cue you in on the fact that it wasn't just your imagination though,
Yeah, well, it's like I say, though, one of the biggest things that people can do to trip themselves up in a session is to try to not use their imagination at all, because that's kind of the language that your higher self uses to talk to you. Yeah. So the people who have the most difficult trouble, or the difficult times or trouble, is if they're so interested in being completely pure and completely everything that they cut themselves off from their imagination. They're not going to go anywhere. They've boxed themselves out of an experience. Yeah. Because I say it often that the higher self's language is the imagination. And once you get on this idea of trusting that and just trusting what's coming through, that's when some real key discoveries and insights can happen, and some real beautiful healings very, very often. But not, here's the thing. What we're trying to do, most of us anyway, is to do something different than the traditional, conventional concept of what medicine is, which is something's wrong with me. I go to my doctor or go to my hospital. They fix me. I go home. This sort of thing, this exchange, this agreement where you give everything over to somebody else. Somebody else does something. You go home and something's different. The whole idea of doing quantum healing is that you participate, that you're in charge, that you're creating this, that it's within you, that all of these things. But we've been so ingrained with this concept of go to somebody, get fixed, go home, that's still kind of happening. When clients come to practitioners, they still, I'm going to come here, I'm going to lay down, I'm going to, pay your fee, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to have no more problems, and then I'm going to go home forever and ever, and everything will be perfect, and I'll live on the clouds, Yeah. And it's not that, but that doesn't mean it can't be extraordinarily brilliant, beautiful, and even miraculous, because it certainly can. And I've seen that enough that it keeps me quite engaged with this work, with its possibilities. And, hundreds of people now have taken the BQH class. It's only been available for 6 months, and hundreds of people have taken it. I did want to mention to you, you might not even really realize this, and those of you who've taken the course, especially if you took it early on, may not really realize it if you haven't revisited the course. But every single month, I add another webinar. Every month, another hour's worth of content goes on to the class, and we pick different things to focus on. Often there's a Q&A section, and those are, of course, very helpful always as people come in and experience sessions. But we focused on a lot of things like marketing. How do you let people know about your practice? We've done that. We've done mock sessions, which is, well, what if I say this, or what if this happens? And we've done some play acting back and forth. And the one that's coming up this coming Saturday, we're actually going to talk about something called surrogate healing using a BQH session. And so that is for, let's say you have a loved one who's in a coma, or you have a child who's, 6 years old or something, or you have, in my own case, both of my parents were elderly, had extreme issues going on, had no opportunity to participate in a session because of their hearing, because of medications, because of some other things. And they were both, Shane, in 2015, 24/7 oxygen. They both had their own compressors, their oxygen compressors in the same place in the middle of the house. And they would kind of come and go, dragging their oxygen lines like that. And it was awful. It was awful to see. My heart, my mother for congestive heart failure, my father for COPD. So a little different, causes, but they both were having trouble breathing. They both went they both benefited from a surrogate healing session. I wasn't even involved. It was two other quantum healers, and they did sessions. They were quite different time periods. It wasn't both at the same time, because my dad had his first, got off oxygen. My mom's like, hey, how about those ladies doing this for me?
Right.
And you know what? She didn't even know when. She did not know when this session took place. Oh gosh, I'm getting goosebumps. She woke up the next morning and took her oxygen off, and she never had to have it again.
Wow.
Now, that didn't mean she wasn't cured of congestive heart failure. That did not happen. But her life became so much easier. She didn't have to drag around the tanks. She didn't have to, and even almost more than that, her attitude changed. Her attitude was completely different. And she actually suffered a stroke that ended up complications taking her life some months after that. But the time between her surrogate session where she got off the oxygen, the time between that and her stroke that basically took her out of this human existence, was some of the most beautiful months I've ever spent with my mother. That's incredible healing as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, we're going to talk about this idea of surrogate healing in our webinar on Saturday. So for those of you BQHers, check the forum. It'll be a Zoom invitation, and they're all recorded. And all of these recordings are put right back onto the course. So those of you who've taken the course can watch the replays.
Yeah, I think it was really cool, because the one webinar that really went into everyone's tips they had for how they got out, how they produced their stuff, and all the little tips of how to set up their equipment and all of that. It's just so helpful, because there's so many little things to consider that you don't really even consider. And even within the course material itself, to consider how many directions the session can go. I mean, there's so many things that you don't even consider, but just in the two that I've had the opportunity to do, they were so different from one another. But the material covered both of those sort of directions, so I was prepared. So I felt, confident that wherever it went, I would be okay with it, and so I'm really thankful for how comprehensive it was, and sort of letting you know that, hey, it might get weird if they're not seeing anything. It doesn't mean they're not seeing anything. They might be a cell, or they might be, in space, or whatever, so there's so many different things that you don't ever even consider that that the course brings out, and it makes it interesting too, to imagine that, wow, they've had sessions that go that way before. So I really enjoyed it. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I could talk about this stuff forever. I'm so in love. I'm so in love with it. I'm as excited about it now as I was back in 2008 when I first landed in Arkansas at Dolores Cannon's class. But yeah, Shane, we've had such an interest in the course. Do you know that it is now currently being translated into German, Spanish, French, and Japanese? We have people translating the course to take it to other parts of the world, because what I'm learning is, and with every one of these people who are helping us translate, they have immigrated to America, most of them, or they have, English speaking and then their own native speakers who are interested in this work, interested in having sessions, but can't access the material because it's not, in their own language. So we hope to offer it in all of those languages coming up sometime in 2019. We really hope to be able to take BQH to the world. But speaking about to the world, you said it earlier, the Bible Belt. I'm on the same buckle. If the buckle was right there in Kansas and Oklahoma, I'm on it together. I'm here in rural Kansas, and before BQH, when I was just practicing QHHT, I still stayed very busy because I was quite prominent. I was working straight with Dolores, and all of that meant that I stayed very busy with sessions, and people would fly in right here to come to my studio, and that was great. And people still do that. But you know what? Since I started doing BQH, since I started doing sessions online, it has completely changed now. It is about 85% of my sessions I'm now doing online.
Oh, wow.
And only about 15% people walk through the door. And what I have found is that I have now, I have an opportunity to talk to people, to other practitioners who, here's one, this woman who took herself on kind of this healing jaunt. She's in the middle of writing a 4-part blog on our website, quantumhealers.com. I think part 2 is published today. She's taken herself on this healing journey, and she was starting to like run out of money. Well, she's got to figure out what she's going to do. She's like praying for it, meditating, a bunch of synchronicities happen. She finds BQH, boom, suddenly she can continue to live where she's living because she has a computer. She has an online community. She can live in Thailand and do sessions either while she's traveling or using the computer for people all over the world. So, people like us who live in kind of the backwoods and not in Sedona, not in Austin, not in some of these places, not Mount Shasta,
right.
Where the metaphysical communities are, we can still tap into the needs of people across the planet and assist them that way. Because energy, focuses on energy. You might really resonate with somebody who doesn't happen to live within driving distance from you.
Yeah, I love that aspect of it. I haven't done one over the internet yet. I've only done them in person, but yeah, I can see how it would be very easy nowadays. Technology is so good. I mean, I've done all these streams. I think out of hundreds of streams I've done, I think my power went off once, which you really can't blame the internet for that. It was like our power went out in the area, or I think it might have gone out twice. But, out of all the live streams I've done, I haven't really had any issues like that to even worry about. So I can imagine, and I think it was Allison Coe that I was talking to that said, well, we just have it set up where if something happens to the internet, we'll just continue on the phone. And she has a backup plan set up in place. And I was like, oh, that's so smart. I would have never thought of that. So yeah, everything's set up to just continue. And I think it's really cool because this really, you can get to people that's in places that you normally can't get to. And they can be in the comfort of their own home, which is really cool because a lot of people are kind of nervous about going into an office setting or something, but so that's
it's cool. Really true. Yeah. And the performance anxiety, if you spend a whole lot of money for a ticket to get somewhere in a hotel or maybe a Uber and you've done all of this and then there you are, it's like, okay,
it's do or die.
I'm probably not going to come back tomorrow. I know. And some of that performance anxiety that's tough. Yeah. And let me tell you what, there's this idea of internet connection. Well, those of us who do this work, we say, the higher self or the SC, we say sometimes for short, it only brings you the session that you need to have and things will only happen the way they're supposed to happen. So I actually have been doing the online sessions since I guess summer of 2016, I really started to do them. And I did them, I didn't talk to a lot of people about, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this and see how it goes before really being very vocal about it. And I was so blown away with how wonderful it all turned out. Now, I have had some blips in connection and power outages, but you know what? Every time we've reconnected and every time I have been able to, in retrospect, look at what was going on or even ask the higher self, why did we have that happen? Every single time it was for a reason. Every single time. Sometimes it's like she needed to be in absolute quiet for 10 minutes while we got this healing to go through her before you needed to not be connected. She needed just that for that long. Then when you reconnected, then you could go. So that was one. Here was another one. One fellow, we had a great connection and suddenly he was like, there was a lot of glitches but because we put into place the idea of if we have technological problems, we basically, just like if you're watching a movie at home, put the movie on pause, take care of the technical issues, go back to the movie. It's the same exact thing. So we did this in his session, put the experience on pause. And I said, can you get any closer to your router? And he said, oh, yes, I can get much closer to my router. So he went over to his router. He laid down on the floor. he happened to lay down on the floor, like right over this potted plant. This he was in his office. This potted plant was like right here, but it was close to the router. And his higher self talked about how he had to get out of the room that he was in that had things in it that were not conducive to the healing that he needed. And he needed to be close to this plant to heal.
Wow.
The higher self set up the power of wonkiness to get us to move. I mean, if you just don't take it at face value, it's like anything. It's even like what we were talking about at the beginning of this show about health challenges. You know, the first human instinct is to fix it, fix it and make it perfect and keep going. But you have to really, you don't have to. It is it's worthwhile to consider that no matter what it is that happens to you, it's for your benefit. Here's a small example. Yesterday, I was trying to trap another stray cat at my farm. I just found a stray cat at home and 2 more showed up. I'm a little afraid about trapping these 2 cats because I'm afraid then 4 will show up. But I had this trap out for this cat. They're humane, and I take them to the vet and I find them homes, all that. And sure enough, I didn't get a cat. I got myself a possum. And I knew it was a possibility, but I was like, and this little guy had been in my garage eating sunflower seeds anyway. So it was great for me to relocate him. And I was putting him back in the truck and my foot slipped and I kind of took a tumble and I twisted my knee pretty good. And I haven't twisted my leg there like that for quite a while. But the message was so incredibly clear. Girl, slow down. Slow down. So I've been hobbling since then, and I've been smelling a little more flowers that way. I've been doing things a little slower and really laughing at myself, knowing that the energy of pulling myself to the thing that would get me to slow down was exactly what I needed. And I'm sending myself love. I'm sending my leg love. I'm sending the possum love. And I'm taking things a little slower and going. And I'm going to focus on this in the healing class a lot. If you can make yourself at least consider to be exactly what you purport, unbiased and on the fence, if you can get yourself on the fence and try to look at something a little more neutrally, you have the opportunity to see how it could possibly be a message or a gift, not a punishment. Not that thing, not the old way of looking at things. Louise Hay, the indomitable Louise Hay, the way she even wrote her book, the first thing it's said that was the first thing that came out of her mouth when she was told that she had cancer was, "Yay, that's wonderful." And part of you wants to think that's crazy. I mean, you, me, the person down the street told you I have cancer, probably not going to have that reaction. But see, she understood this. She understood there was a gift in there somewhere for her. She just didn't know what it was yet. And it was with that attitude that she took that she was able to come out of it. And that also doesn't mean that if you don't come out of it, you did something wrong, because that's a little too simplistic as well. I want everyone else out there to know that as well. But it's an important concept to think about when anything happens to you, twisted ankle, car accident, disease, or anything.
It's funny that you bring that up, because that's one of the things I've noticed. It's like the more you look into the things that happen, and, I was explaining all of the jobs I've done have really helped me in what I do now with the YouTube channel. Like, we were talking the graphic design and the video production and all of that stuff. And once you look back on stuff and you really see how it seemed to be coordinated and orchestrated, it helps you move forward in exactly what you're saying, just sort of trusting that there's a reason for everything. And like you said, if there is a disconnection, now that's the first thing I'm thinking. Why did this happen? Not why in the sense of why universe, but really like, what am I missing here? There is a reason. Nothing happens by coincidence or accident. I don't believe in accidents or coincidences anymore. I believe everything is orchestrated, and there's always a silver lining, but there's always like a little bit of a message in there to get with whatever happens, even if it seems like it's small and insignificant. If it catches your attention, find the message there. And the more you look, the more you find them. So that's why I'm a strong believer in this whole thing you're talking about with really looking at the meanings of stuff, because you'll always find that message, you know?
Yeah, no matter what it is. You know, I'm sitting just feet from my front door here, and in warm weather sometimes with in-person clients, when we're done, I take them out there and we sit in the sunshine. They can ground. There's a little sidewalk there. And I was having this exact same conversation with this woman about watching everything. It didn't matter what happened. Whatever came by that would capture, just exactly the way you put it. Shane, do you know that I just finished saying that? And all of a sudden, down the street, coming right towards us, was a little dust devil, this little vortex of a dust devil. And it came and it sat right in front of us like this. And I'm watching this woman, she's going, you know, and the little dust devil pulled up some leaves like that and went down the road. And she just, that gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. It was like, that's exactly it.
But that sounds crazy to other people. They're like, you're just making, you know, you're finding meaning in meaningless things. It's like, no, just look. And the more you look to try to disprove it, the more you find meaning in it, the more you notice more things. And it's like, you can't help but notice if you consider it, you know. And it does sound crazy to some people, but for me, it happens so much. It would be crazy not to recognize that there's purpose in all of these things, you know.
Shane, I hope you let me indulge you with a story about a session I did once where this proved to be, it was so incredibly entertaining. I wrote about this on our Quantum Healers blog, and I may not even remember every detail of it right now. But so I had a session in the morning, and so I'm doing my farm work, my farm chores before the session, and I'm wondering, as I always do, you know, how the session is going to be. And I'm walking down the dirt road there towards my barn, and I'm thinking about the session, and I see this rabbit. Well, that's no biggie. I live in the country. I see lots of rabbits. And then I saw another rabbit, and then I saw another rabbit, and then I saw another rabbit. I think I saw like 8 rabbits, and about 6 of them were running around the horse paddock between the horses' feet. I mean, not baby rabbits that like got stirred up or something. These were like full-grown rabbits run in the middle of the day. I'm like, what is going on? And then I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then what ends up happening is about 7 different animals. So that was the first one that alerted me. 7 different animals did something completely weird between the time that I left, you know, fed the horses, came back, got in my truck, came out here to the studio. About 7 different animals did things that were just a little bit off or completely weird. You know, I had a pheasant, a beautiful male pheasant. I was at a stop sign and it just came out of the grass and it walked right in front of me like that. Like, and I'm like, what is that? You know? And there was these other things. And then the very last one, I remember the very last one, there was a turtle and some other things. There were a couple, 3 birds and some other things. And the very last one was, I was just coming into town and I was thinking, well, that's got to be it for the animals, you know, messages I'm going to be asking about this in the session today. I'm sure it has something to do with the session coming up, right? And I'm coming into town. The last thing that happens before you come into town, there's railroad tracks. That's kind of your entrance into town. And I'm coming up to these railroad tracks and there comes this buck. And he's so beautiful. And he's got these antlers that have he's so close I can see the fuzz on his antlers, and he crosses right in front of my truck, and he goes into town. He goes into town, and I'm like, what's going on? And I kind of, and I'm you know, I'm cataloging all of this, you know, and it's so entertaining. And the joy, right? The joy in this, knowing, absolutely knowing that these are energetic things that have to do with the fact that I am intending, this woman is intending, we're intending to do a session together. I'm like, I am sure this has something to do with that. So I get, and it's an online session, I get online with this person. And the first thing I ask her is if she's an animal lover. She says, not really. And okay, I'm like, okay. And she has this session. It doesn't have to do with animals. It doesn't anything. But at the, I mean, it doesn't, nothing seems to connect to it. So I'm still, but when I get to her higher self, I ask about every one of them. What did those rabbits mean? It means she needs to get moving. She's not moving. She needs to do this. She needs to do that. What did this? Every single animal meant something. And that last one, I think, it was her animal totem. And she was to call on him for strength, for other things like that. It was just astonishing.
Wow.
It was, and the reason is because her higher self said, we set this up because she has such a strong analytical conscious mind that she was going to question the experience, but we sent these animals to help her understand and to emphasize some of the information that we wanted her to get out of the session today. And it was extraordinarily beautiful and fun. And I think that's what I love about it. I had no idea. I've never had anything like before that or since. Yeah. And that's what happens when you do this work. It constantly surprises you.
Yeah. And it's like, that just goes to show how much we should be paying attention, because she wasn't even paying attention enough that they could show her the animals. They had to show you, because nothing happens for, no reason. There's always a reason in there. So you presented those questions beforehand, so you could see how it was all set up in a way that she, like, are you in animals? No, well, I kind of had these things happen. And then you ask about them, and then there's explanations that come out her mouth. So you didn't even, so it all connected in this wonderful little puzzle. You know what I mean? The little pieces came together. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. That's awesome. I wanted to ask you, switch gears a little bit. I wanted to ask you how you found and how your community is finding, the recent energies on the planet, because they've been kind of intense, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. And you know what? It's like everyone's sort of on their own journey with the whole energy. Some people feel like, well, I've been down, and it's just sort of grouped together, I guess. There's people that, felt like they were low and now they're feeling high. Others that felt high and now they're feeling low. And I really think it's just, I think we all really we're just kind of on our journey, maybe as a whole too, but we're just on our individual thing, and we're sort of experiencing things. Things are coming up on an individual basis that we need to take care of and things like that. But there's definitely a lot of activity going on. I would say that it's just, there's no really blanket statement to say, well, everybody's high vibe right now, because it seems to really just depend on the person,
Yeah. The thing that seems to be universal pretty much for me is it's sort of a ramping up.
Yeah.
Things are happening faster. You know how we've said in this community a lot that, well, we're doing this because you manifest, you create your own life, but there's this lag, right? Well, I think the lag is shortening. I think it's shortening a lot in 2019 from what I can see. Not always, but I think that it's trending in that way. I also have found that the dream time for a lot of people is a lot less jumbled or a lot more connected to things. Dreams have been very significant. Some people have been having some wild experiences during the nighttime. For me, most of my dreams seem to be, most of them regular dreams, but they will connect up to something that happens the next day in an incredible way, kind of like the animal thing, that you don't know how that works until the next day. And that's been pretty consistent for me as well. And that's another way that your higher self speaks to you, by the way, is through the dream state. And, if something intrigues you about your dream and catches your attention, see where that plugs into your life in the next little while. It's not always prophetic. It's often symbolic. And for me, what I'm finding often is that my dreams are messages, not even always for me, but for clients or for friends.
Yeah.
That I have, I have no connection with what's going on with me. Here's an example. I dreamed about my friend who is a veterinarian, and I dreamed that I walked into her office and I said, how are you doing? She goes, I haven't been so well ever since I found out I had Parkinson's disease. She says, I found out I really can't eat anything like that anymore. And she points to her desk, and there was some French fries and like some jelly beans or something on her desk. And it was the strangest thing. And I'm like, Parkinson's disease? I didn't know you had Parkinson's disease. And that was the end of the dream. And I thought, well, so the next day I'm thinking, well, what do I do with that? And this is my vet who's very awake, and we have lots of great conversations. I had to see her anyway. So I said, I want to tell you about this dream, but, I want you to know that a lot of these things are symbolic, and I don't know how that, but, let me tell you what this dream was. I don't want you to think you're going to get Parkinson's disease is kind of what I was saying to her. Right. And, nothing really matched, and shrugged my shoulders. Well, guess what? The next day I had a dream about a colleague of mine. And I actually dreamed I walked into an auditorium, and we were there to see Jesus. Jesus was speaking to us. And there was a vast number of people. And the only person I saw that I knew was this colleague friend of mine. And I looked at her and I said, hi. And she said, don't forget to ask him about the unicorns. And I was like, okay. And, it was a dream, right? And I take my seat and I'm waiting, and well, there's that. So the next day, I call her up and I say, I have to just tell you, I had this dream about you. And she's like, and I could tell on the other end of the phone, she was not well. She was not well at all. She was having some internal tremors. They were looking into Parkinson's disease. And guess what she found out? That eating carbs and sugar set off her tremors.
Wow.
And the person that she feels easiest to talk to about these kinds of things, her own veterinarian.
Wow.
So how interesting is that?
It's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's wild.
So, it didn't have anything to do with my friend, but it had to do with carbs, sugar, tremors, and whatever. And the good news is, by the way, everyone, we continue to follow the dream, follow the Jesus dream and everything. We did some healing, some surrogate long distance healing, night and day.
Did you figure out the unicorn part of it?
Well, she had, there was mystical connections, some dreams that she had, and that she had just picked up a unicorn costume for her granddaughter at the post office.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy, which may or may not have anything to do with the other things.
Or maybe it was to mention now on the air about the unicorns, and then for me to lead into a Mandela effect, that unicorns is now in the Bible. Did you know that?
No way.
Yeah, there's unicorns in the Bible.
Way.
Yeah, no joke. Like, and people are, it's always had unicorns. I'm like, no, dude. I'm like, if it had unicorns, I would have remembered it has unicorns in it. How could you forget?
Wait, what was the reference? Because I just watched a really weird reference about unicorns being everywhere and what their symbology was. What's the Bible reference?
Truth Stream Media? I think they did one.
It might have been. It might have been. Yeah, it's a gal who's like, she took a bunch of pictures and said she saw them everywhere.
And it seems like they're like in everything.
Yeah.
Here, it
was actually a well done video, but it kind of ended kind of crummy, kind of negatively focused, but I don't know,
Let's see. Will the unicorn be willing to serve? Job 39, 9 through 12. Unicorn.
Huh.
Yeah, I think it's in there several times, but that's one that you can find, Job, in the King James Version. Unicorn in the Bible. Can you believe it?
Well, I'm no Bible scholar, but I never remembered a unicorn in a Bible. My goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like the more you look into this, it's like it comes up all the time. I have to really, In Truth by Grace. Is that the channel maybe? Are you telling us, Sherry? Affected Collective maybe? Everybody's, chiming in on where the unicorn would be.
Sure. But and we haven't really talked to a lot of your listeners either. And I want to thank all of you who are listening to us chat today and supporting both me and Shane. Really appreciate all of that.
Well, we haven't been missing any questions, so we're good.
Okay, good.
Hey,
excellent.
Suso and Angela, I see they shouted out, but no questions. They're just enjoying the conversation and
excellent.
Chatting it up.
Well, I know I have. Here, I wanted to ask you something I've been thinking about this Mandela effect question for a really long time.
Sure.
And maybe it's something that you have thought about or that you've answered on multiple occasions. But what I've always wondered, when most of the Mandela effect conversations go down this path about what people remember and what people, what reality stream they were in, and all of that is fine. But But what I think would be absolutely fascinating, and I think about this every time I see your intro roll go in, and there's the two different kinds, which is brilliant, by the way, absolutely so well done. I always wonder if I could pay someone to research, to go to each, especially the big ones, I would go to either the artist or the inventor or the producer or the writer or the musician or the novelist or whoever, the movie director, everyone in the movie, like Field of Dreams or whatever. If you interviewed all the people in Field of Dreams, they all have the same, would they be taken out of the context of the Mandela effect? Would they all have or would they be like the rest of us out here with a different idea?
I haven't really done the footwork myself, but what I found to be, whenever I've seen it happen, is like, if you're really close to something, then you know it as if it's always been that way. So if you were in the movie that we're talking about, you'll remember it always being the way it currently is, which is really strange, because like, you can talk to the doctor, because that's the first thing that comes to mind, is to go to the person that's most qualified to answer the question. So like, where the heart, we remember the heart being over here, and and doing your Pledge of Allegiance, and you're putting your hand over your heart, it's like way on the left, but now it's like pretty much in the center, a little bit to the left, but not where it used to be. And you think, I'll go to my doctor or my nurse friend and ask them. And typically, I mean, I have to say this because overprotected Sherry, she's a nurse, and she sees it happening. And she's like, not all nurses, but yeah, for the most part, though, if you go to the person that's qualified, they'll say it's always been that way. And they'll be able to tell you, I remember in class learning about the heart being in the center of the chest. And it's just weird, It's so weird.
Well, yeah, and it flips around. I think it flips around depending on where you are. What would be interesting to be able to note too is if somebody like documented their, maybe they thought there was only 5 moon landings last year, and this year they think there's 3.
Right.
Or something, where they are on their scale, and all I know is. It makes my marriage so much better, because my husband and I never, ever, ever argue about these things anymore. We just simply say, well, in my reality, this is the way it was, and in your reality, it was that way. And then we don't argue about anything anymore. We go, oh, well, and then we just go on from there. And neither one of us have to freaking be right. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of, it's a funny way of explaining it, but it's also a wonderful way of explaining it. As an example, I had a very tiny interchange on Facebook the other day, and somebody just really, really wanted to argue with me and debate with me about something, and she just wasn't going to let it go. And I thanked her for her opinion, and I was, just like, I'm not interested in debating anybody about anything. I mean, I remember feeling a kind of thrill about the concept of debate. It's kind of a sparring thing, I want nothing to do with that anymore. If somebody tries to get me into like that kind of thing, I'm like, okay, just whatever that's fine. Yeah. That's the way you'd like to have it. That's your belief, your system, your whatever. But how about just leaving me kind of out of it? And, I think that to me is one of the best parts of the Mandela effect. For those who are awakened, they realize that arguing about it is kind of this waste of time. Yeah. And if you really see the beauty in it, what you really need to see is it's the now moment. Again, it's another brilliant orchestration of telling you none of it matters. Doesn't matter what you remember, what you saw, what you recorded, what you did. Only thing it remembers is now. Now is the only thing.
Yeah. And even our memories are perceptions of the past and the now. Whether we're looking at a photo of the past, you're still looking at it right now. And that's really one of the things when I really dove into this whole thing, is to realize that no matter what, you're always in the now looking at stuff. Whether you're reading a book that's changed, it's still now that you're reading it. And or someone's memory, they're telling you what they remember now. So that's what's strange about it. But I did notice, on a side note to what you were saying about people close to stuff, there's like clips of people before the Mandela effect changed, like James Earl Jones talking about the "Luke, I am your father" line, but it's an old interview before the change happened, so that survived. Exactly. So he was close to it. He talked about Luke, I am your father, but I don't know what he would say if I could talk to him in person and say,
Right.
hey, who knows,
Right.
it's weird.
Yeah. It is weird. It is very, very weird. I can't drive by a Chick-fil-A without thinking about it.
Yeah, it's so weird. It comes
I
up all
know.
the time. It's like you do these gatherings, if you get with
Yeah.
family or something, people that aren't
Yeah.
really hip to what's going on, or they're
Yeah.
tired of you talking about it.
Right. Right.
A
Yeah.
song would come on the radio and you just want to say, did you know this has been changed, or a commercial, or
Yeah.
something, and it keeps coming
Yeah.
up and you have to keep biting your lip and
Yeah.
not to bring it up and become
Yeah.
annoying about it, because it's like
Yeah.
all over, thousands of changes.
You know what I find really interesting about that whole concept, because you have to feel out somebody where they are if you can talk to them about these kinds of things. I know you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And some of those people, though, what you can tell when they want to bring you the proof, like, I will show you, here's the proof, meaning it doesn't even matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's Chick-fil-A or a movie or whatever. It doesn't matter. What they do is they give up their entire perception and power to tell you, go to this authority. Look at this authority outside of you, outside of me. This is the authority, right? We're not the authority. This is the authority. That's the big message for me, right?
That's true.
I'm not going to this authority, the internet or that dictionary or this school or that person or that guru or whatever. I'm done with that. The authority is just right here.
Yeah.
That's
so cool
and
that you
I'm
brought
not
that
going,
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
a lot
not
of
going
times,
to put my authority on you, and how about you don't give me yours?
yeah, and that's one of the funny things, because you'll try to ask someone, like, what do you remember? And a lot of times people will reach for their phone and go to look it up. It's like, no,
Right.
no. Go off your memory. What do you remember? And then you tell them it's wrong, and they look it up and like, no, this is how it's always been. And they still
Yeah.
trust something over their own mind, But yeah, you're right. It's totally like, go within and tell me what you remember. And then people are like, well, everybody's misremembering. I'm like, misremembering the same exact thing, though. Like the thinker statue. Why don't some people remember it like this or something? You know what I mean? It's like, why is this the thinker pose with the weightlifters? And I mean, it just seems silly, because I would have never picked this if the statue hadn't. I would have went probably like this or something for thinking. I don't know, but it wouldn't have been the fist to the forehead. So I know it's not misremembering in that instance,
Yeah. Yeah, so interesting.
It is a fun topic,
gosh. Yeah, it is. Hey, we've been at this for a while. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. I've just had the best time getting to know you and chatting. And I want to thank you so much for running the show.
Oh,
so
no problem.
I didn't have to.
Thanks for interviewing me, because I'm sure people,
very
I've
well.
revealed things that that's never really come up before. And I don't like to sit and just talk about myself. So it's nice to have you come on and interview me. And this was fun.
Great. Well, It was a lot of fun for me as well. And we'll be posting this on both of our channels. So thank you so much for that.
No problem. I want to remind you guys that the link below to the BQH is down there. So if you are interested in taking the course, I highly recommend it. In fact, I try to put the link in all of my videos just so people might stumble across it, but definitely worth knowing how to do and having it as part of what you can offer to your family, friends, or even, if you want to do a career thing out of it or whatever. So, awesome. So thank you.
Use Shane's code to get 10% off the course. So thanks so much. And it's only getting bigger and better, adding more things to it, and the community is getting bigger and better. Also, and I'm going to send you a new photo of me, and a new graphic, because we are quantumhealers.com now. Here, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what I was going to say. The quantumhealers.com, we're going to be sometime, if 2019 is as great as we hope, it's going to be a unified platform. So right now we've got the class on one website. Of course, it's all linked. But the directory is quantumhealers.com, and then our forum is hosted by another platform. But we are really working towards the idea of a unified platform where everything's in one place. And what I want to talk about, I met her through your community, Suzanne Bertalis, and she teaches her modality. I think she calls it Kishi. And some other people out there, other healers are coming up with their own ways of assisting, helping people either using or teaching their own modalities. And our forum, our support forum, and our directory is uniquely set up to support healers just like you, who don't really fit in the box of other perhaps groups or communities. We're here to support you in your own unique endeavors. And we feel that everybody's individuality and authentic presentation to the spiritual and healing community is worthwhile, and it doesn't have to do with numbers. We're here to support you. So check us out.
Yeah, I really love that too. And I want to thank you for all the work you've put into this. I'm so glad that people are getting the course, and it's really well made and well created. It's rich in content. I love it. So thank you so much for making it more possible for people. Because
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
I really appreciate that.
That was a big part of it all. Well, I thank you too for everything you do for the world and for the time you spent today. And I thank all of you who showed up today to listen to us. Thank you all out there.
Okay, lots of love to everybody in the chat, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks again, Candace.
Thanks. Bye.
If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.